What is going on? And welcome on in, everybody, to the OBR Cleveland Browns pregame show, week number 4 for the 1-2 Cleveland Browns, who are out today making us wait till this afternoon game. They are out today in Las Vegas to take on the Vegas Raiders. If you have been paying attention to social media and your Cleveland Browns friends and all of that, you should be really excited just to watch the start of this game, because it looks like there's going to be a heavy presence of Cleveland Browns fans. It looks like there's going to be a sea of orange in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas today as the Browns get set to get the train, to get the ship rightened, going in the right direction against the Raiders. We're going to break it all down for you as we take you until just before kickoff here on the OBR pregame show. But before we do all that, make sure you get over to the OBR.com. Make sure you hit subscribe and make sure you are following us on all the socials, and wherever you're at here on YouTube or Twitch, hit subscribe, hit like, and hang out with us, because nobody covers the Cleveland Browns like we do here at the Orange and Brown Report. I am your host, Michael Keefe, and I am joined by these handsome gentlemen on the screen with me. First, it's Brad Ward. Find him online at Ward on Sports. Brad, how'd you wake up? How'd you wake up today? You wake up feeling good?
Feeling good. Feeling like we're getting to 2-2. Looks like Steelers might lose. We're getting, could be a good day. Could be a good day. Opportunity is there. I don't. Are they still? They're still losing, right? I believe
they were. Yeah.
So that would be good. That'd be huge. You know.
Love when those guys lose.
I mean, they're fraudulent, so I'm not worried about it. The rest of the division has one win. So, getting a win today would be gigantic. Just 1 week at a time, Stefanski style.
Well, we got a full quarter left on that Steelers game, and they're only down a touchdown. So let's just hope and pray. Let's hope and pray. Also joining us, you see him over there coming off a big victory. We're going to call him Coach here tonight. Coming off a 55-0 victory out there in Streetsboro. Pete Smith, man, you rode into this weekend on a pretty good high. How you feeling going into this game?
I feel good about us. We'll see what the Browns do. I mean, I would just say this has been a very strange weekend of football in general. From high school to college to now the NFL, scores are all over the place. It just goes to show that, I say this all the time, but week-to-week league, like based on what we saw from Jacksonville against the Bills, you figure they're done. They're currently up, at least last I looked, they're beating the Texans, which everybody's pronounced to be one of the favorites of the Super Bowl. So you better be ready to play this week. I know the Raiders are injured. The Browns are injured. Somebody's got to come ready to play if the Browns want to get back to that 2-2 record.
I love it. And also joining us, find him, Roachism13 online. It's Jacob Roach. Jacob, same question, man. How you feeling when you woke up this morning?
I was feeling pretty good. I'm feeling even better now that Joe Flacco just put the Colts up 2 touchdowns on the Steelers. That feels pretty good. If there was ever a situation to try to right some of the things that are going wrong, like you've got some favorable matchups, their top 2 players are out, it just feels like it's not a gimme. We saw that last week, so I'm not going to say anything ludicrous like that, but they've got some matchups they should be able to exploit. So I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, getting a little help. As we see from the comments here, Serge in the comments getting a little help from Joe Flacco over there, playing in Indy. I believe, if I read it right, I've been working around the house all day, but if I read it right, I believe Minkah Fitzpatrick involved on another hit that injured somebody. So that's super cool on his part, which is why Joe Flacco's in the game, but not surprising in the slightest. All right, boys. So again, I do want to welcome everybody to the comments here, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch. Be a part of the show. Jump in, get your opinions heard, ask your questions. We'll try to get to those as we go. But guys, here we are as far as it was a little bit of a weird week as far as the injury reporting goes, especially on the Vegas side of things, where Vegas basically came out and said, all the guys you would be afraid of when you play us are not going to play in this game. And then there was like a Lee Corso not so fast moment.
Psych.
Right? Where it was like, well, actually, Max Crosby, we're going to call him doubtful, but like, I want to say the last time Max Crosby was doubtful in a game, he had like 3 sacks in that game. So it was kind of like, hold on a minute. Officially now, those guys, the big names, Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, are not playing in this game against the Cleveland Browns. So just kind of talk about what this means and really what the message needs to be in the Browns locker room as far as, yeah, these guys maybe aren't playing, but we still have had a really bad offensive line start to the year. And so just because Max Crosby isn't out there, there's still guys we got to block. Like what's the message out there? Pete, I'll let you kick it off.
Well, look, I mean, Christian Wilkins is still playing. Tyree Wilson hasn't been great, still playing. They've got guys that can cause problems. And the way Antonio Pierce is trying to coach these guys, he just wants to send a lot of energy at the opponent and see what comes up. I mean, the other side of the ball, Brock Bowers is one of the best tight ends in the league, right, as a rookie, which, I mean, last week the Browns had a chance to shut down a rookie and just decided to go ahead and help him out. So they've got another rookie in Brock Bowers that can light up a scoreboard. So they've got to make sure they take care of business on him, hopefully with a better plan than they had against Malik Neighbors. So whatever we want to say about the Raiders, first and foremost, the Browns are, we keep talking about them as just try to get far enough that they get Njoku, Chubb, the tackles, the growing list of guys of if we just get to this point, we're going to get all these guys back. Well, this is the one time maybe the opponent's worse off than the Browns are. They've got to take advantage. Not to mention, they're just not very good. I mean, even if you're saying, let's say the Raiders are playing backups, nothing but backups. The Browns have looked like a team that would struggle on air. They've just got to play good football, period. They don't get the excuse of, well, the Raiders don't look very good. Fine. The Browns have not looked good in 3 games. They're lucky they got the win that they did. They almost gave it away. So they've just got to play good football for the sake of playing good football. They've got to play good football for the sake of getting to week 5 and week 6 against teams that maybe they didn't expect to be as good as they are to really get this thing going.
Guys, you go ahead and jump in just as far as how the approach and how we're thinking about this. Because, again, it's hard not to get overly excited when you see the guys that aren't playing. But, again, as Pete said, it's been a struggle against anybody this year.
Yeah, I'm excited. Anyways, I think, any chance you got a chance to go get a win like this early in the season. I mean, we were talked a lot about preseason that they had to put some of these early wins in put some hay in the barn. And I keep using that expression that I hate so much for some reason. They had to do that, and they failed to do it last week. But you've got another opportunity this week. It's going to be a virtual home game there, and you're playing a really banged up team who is on the ropes and had just as much off the field nonsense as you did last week. So, I mean, you have a chance here to get a win, get some good feelings going. And as Pete said, you just got to kind of hang around until the reinforcements start to come back or some of these guys start to come back. And then you can really try to get this thing in a rhythm and going in the right direction. But, I would expect today, or at least I really hope today, to see them make an intentional and a persistent effort at running the football against the 29th worst run defense in the league. Something that we haven't seen them really stay with or be, I know they've been down, but even then you still have to make a consistent effort to run the ball. And they need to be better about that, at least early in the game too.
You're going against a team that is 5th worst in total rushing yards. Only the Giants, Rams, Colts, and Cowboys have allowed more rushing yards defensively than the Raiders have. And the Raiders are allowing over 5 yards a carry. Do things that make your quarterback, who is struggling to do the basics of being a quarterback, do the things. I feel like a broken record because I think I've said it on all 4 pregame shows. Do the things that.
Is anybody watching?
Yeah. Tune in, Kevin. Come on. Just do some of these things that you have an opportunity to do that'll take some of that burden off of Watson. Get them in a spot to where some of this play action works a little bit better. I know you don't have to run the ball to make play action work, but it helps. And you're going up against a matchup where last week you should have been able to run the ball. You should have been able to. The Giants have given up more rushing yards than the Raiders, but you should be able to do these things. So do these things. There's a comment about Casey. I have heard from Casey. He is safe. He just does not have power until at least tomorrow at the earliest. I just saw that comment in there. But
and hold on, I'm gonna let you go back to the Browns, but there's 3 people that I think people should just know are okay. Casey has told us that he's doing all right. This is all hurricane related. We got some people that live down in the south. Casey's told us he's doing all right. If you're familiar with the forums, then you're going to be familiar with one of our mods there, 80s. That's all I know him as, and I've been around here for years, and I know him as 80s, but he's down in Florida, and he's said he's doing all right, and he's been trying to help out down there. And then I am going to give a quick shout out. I know one of our former OBR people, but also involved in this, Andrew Spades down there in Asheville, North Carolina, and they got crushed, and he sent some messages that he's doing all right. So I know you guys all care about them, and just wanted to give everybody just a heads up that we've heard that power is an issue, water's an issue, travel is an issue, cell service is an issue down there with how bad that hurricane was, but everybody's safe at least. So I just wanted to make sure we hit on that. So thank you for touching on that, Jacob.
Yeah, as Casey told me a little bit ago, he's hoping to get enough bars to listen to Sirius XM for the game today. So he's a little bit optimistic about that.
If you see a guy just running through the fields of South Carolina, it's holding his phone up, just trying to find Andrew Siciliano and Nathan Zagura. So, all right. On the other side of things, for the Browns, no surprises on the inactive list, which is on one level, it's like, all right, same inactive list. But on another level, it's kind of like, oh, okay. Thank goodness there's no surprises on the inactive list this week, because that's been a fun start to the season. So again, we're making do with James Hudson and DeJuan Jones. Those guys got to look better. Did we see? I didn't even look, and this is bad hosting out of me. Right guard, is it Zach Zinter?
Yes.
Zach Zinter getting his first NFL start. So again, the question marks are going to be there on that offensive line, but these are guys that got to get blocked. I'm going to imagine we don't have any thoughts really on the Browns inactives at this point, because we knew it all week coming into it.
I have a thought. I would like to see Jamari Thrash on the active roster at some point here. And I know this is just nitpicking, but you had David Bell, who looked really good before he got hurt, kind of doing some similar things that I think Thrash can do. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I mean, week after week, we see him on the inactive roster. So obviously not doing something in practice, but whatever is being done, in practice, and as far as the rest of that wide receiver room, at some point, I'd like to see him get a shot to maybe come up and play a little bit, because I feel like that intermediate. Short to intermediate pass game could maybe benefit from a guy like him, the same way David Bell was, thriving in that role for a moment. So maybe one of these days, Mike, maybe one of these days.
Any thoughts out of you guys, Pete, Jacob, on Jamari Thrash?
I mean, I would assume that if the Browns thought he was crushing it in practice, he'd be in there. I mean, this is what we saw last year with Cedric Tillman, where the Browns coaching staff decided he was so good, and then people were pissed that the Browns not only put him on the field, but got rid of DPJ, who they were right. I mean, let's be honest, they were right about the decision. So I'm very interested to see what Thrash can do. NFL's a big jump up. Maybe we'll get there, but I'm not overly concerned about it. But certainly, given the injury to David Njoku and some of the other issues, I get why anyone would want to see potential anything that could help this offense.
The frustration there is Cedric Tillman hasn't been very good. I mean, he is as good as he's practiced, as great of a camp as he had, the award he won. In games, he has not been very good so far. So
I'm not in the business of trying crap out. Like, it's just not how, like, that's just me. I mean, as somebody who does this, if you can't do it in practice, you're not going to do it in the game. I mean, so again, if they think Jamari Thrash is better, then by all means. The other thing I would point out is just Cedric Tillman fulfills a different role than Thrash does. They do very different things, which is,
right.
I think more in line of the Judy / Elijah Moore stuff. Not to say that They couldn't theoretically put all those guys in the field at the same time. But just as a general rule, I try to avoid, because it's an easy trick to get into because we see what we see. We only see like Cedric Tillman, the ball bouncing off the 109 of his chest. And you look at it and you go, well, he's not very good. And on that play, he was awful. But, that's the part I don't see. And I try not to get into the habit of saying, well, the Browns are stupid because they're not doing this thing based on what I can see, which is a very small part of it.
Yeah, and that's not really what I was saying. I was just saying that he hasn't been as good as we had hoped to this point, I don't think. And that's not saying he won't be. I'm just saying to this point, I think he's underwhelmed a little bit.
I think with a lot of the things that were said about him, in the off-season workouts and things and the highlights, and again, we don't know everything, but all the things that were being said and what we were able to see, I think there was an expectation to at least have a little bit more at this point. And some of that's on the quarterback play and the offensive line play, like for sure. But it also hurts when you get that chance that you make that play and you don't make that play. But I did think we would see more out of Cedric Tillman. So I understand the sentiment. Yeah.
Pete, real quick, while we go to the next subject, if you could just go to your Twitter page and edit your profile so that your little tagline on your Twitter page says "not in the business of trying stuff out," that would be great. It's an amazing tagline for you.
Well, it's one of those things where like when you watch games, and I don't care what sport, it could be anything. You get in this mindset of all as a consumer of sports, you only get to see, for the most part, what is on the field. So correct. Let's use the Guardians as an example. When Lane Thomas got here, it was awful, right? It was complete hot garbage. And it's very easy to get in the mindset, well, just try anything because anything's got to be better than this. Well, that is obviously something that sounds good in the moment, but doesn't really translate. Or the always famous line, which is one of the worst things any Browns fans can say. It can't get any worse. Because it always can and has. So that's the point. Yeah. I would just push back on any of those things.
All right, guys. So one of the things that's always great about working with you guys on the OBR is how great you are at breaking things down in depth. And so one of the things that got brought up, and I think it's a key to the game, is that this Raiders team stinks at defending the run. Well, the New York Giants stink at defending the run, and they came into that game last week stinking against the run. And the Browns were never able to establish a run. And part of that, again, can be due to the fact that they fall behind, and then you feel like you got to throw the ball more. But at the same time, dive a little bit more in depth, guys, because if that's going to be one of the keys to the game against this Raiders team, not just that they need to establish the run better, but how do they establish the run better with a little bit of a patchwork offensive line at this point and kind of an inconsistent use of the way they've used Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman to start this season. How do they actually go out and establish that run, and what do they got to do to make that run effective today?
Well, I think that Deontay Foreman, the usage of him has been very peculiar, and I would love to see him get used here this week. I hope that doesn't qualify as just trying things out. But either way, because he did run the ball well in week 2. And I think that him and Ford together are a good complement, right? So, if they didn't try to run the ball last week, Mike, they didn't even try very much at all. I mean, would they run it 4 times in the first half? And granted, I understand that it was part of the game script and all that, but you've got to attempt to. And I would say that I think that even as banged up as its offensive line is, and in fact, I think I've heard you say this, Pete, I believe, is that this offensive line is better at run blocking than they are pass protection. So let's lean into what we're better at here. Now, if they're sitting with heavy boxes and waiting for that, and they're going to, which I would do if, as most teams were probably doing, let's make Deshaun Watson beat us, then I understand that's going to be difficult at times. But I think you need to make a concerted effort to try to do more with the run game than you have.
Well, looking at last week, Dexter Lawrence was an animal. He was a dominant player. Now, I think to Brad's point, you can get so caught up in being afraid of a player that you get away from things that might be effective. But just off of watching, Dexter Lawrence from just working laterally was impressive in terms of how he could take away. Now, having said that, Joe Bitonio and Ethan Posick have so far been better run blocking than pass blocking so far this year. So, the rookie, Zach Zinter, he's been better at pass protection than run blocking. Run blocking, he was bad in the preseason as well, which is also a little concerning. Teller's just got more grown man strength at this point than Zinter would. And DeJuan Jones is okay compared to last year where he was god-awful and in a system that made no sense for him. So having said all that, I do think the Browns are certainly motivated to run the ball. And again, to point to what Brad was talking about, the second half, and I think some of this was set up by some smart plays off the RPO stuff, where Jerome Ford was put in position to succeed. I think Jerome Ford is much better in this system than he was in last year's. They ask him to see and think less in terms of trying to diagnose and execute holes as like a zone runner as opposed to a gap runner where he still has to make decisions, but it's a little bit more of if or as opposed to, well, I've got all these options. And I like what I see from Jerome Ford. For all the things that have gone wrong, and the running game is obviously problematic, Jerome Ford has been a pleasant surprise. I would like to see them be more engaged on that and maybe use that to sort of get Watson going a little bit. Maybe that would help. But again, the run may also be helpful in terms of just trying to keep Christian Wilkins busy, trying to keep those things I would love to see a little bit more just in general. The crack toss. I mean, this is something where the Browns have size receiver-wise and they can get Ford out on the edge. And you go back to that fourth down play where Jerome Ford went up the sideline. He hit, I think, 21 miles per hour. I think it's still one of the fastest runs of a running back has had this season. So if they can get him to the open field, screens, runs, whatever, I think he has the opportunity to be a huge factor in this game with the ball in his hands. And I don't disagree about the point on Foreman. If part of the problem with Foreman is he's not very good if you're getting penalties. So last year, Kareem Hunt, if you needed 2 yards, he would get you 2 yards. If you needed 1 yard, he'd get you 2 yards. If you needed 5 yards, he'd get you 2 yards. I think DeAndre Foreman's about 2.5 yards in that same equation, but it's really difficult when it's 1st and 15 and he gets you 2.5 yards. I would love to see him get a little bit more, but that's where Jerome Ford's explosive ability is a little more tantalizing, even if there are people who might be like, I wish I didn't have some of the drawbacks for it where I get with Deontay Foreman. So if they can stay away from penalties and negative plays, Deontay Foreman makes way more sense in a game plan, which is part of the problem. I think the Browns have been really bad in terms of problem solving off of negative situations so far this season. And that's one of the things they got to get better. Jacksonville's a lone bright spot where they got multiple situations where they were behind the sticks and they came up with answers. They did not do that last week often, and they certainly did not do that week 1 against Dallas. So they've got to be able to come up with some of those answers.
I think part of fixing it is just making sure I hate to be the run the dang ball guy. I'm not trying to be that guy, but outside of, if you take Watson and the quarterback sneaks out of last week, they ran the ball 12 times. Against, and I get it. Pete's right. Dexter Lawrence was phenomenal and Christian Wilkins has been playing really good, but you don't have to run it right at them all that. You can try some of these other things. And I just think that making sure you stick with it. I hate to be that guy, I really do, but it just feels like you should be doing more than 12. That's step 1 in running the ball better, is actually running the ball.
Pete, I thought your point was so good there as far as, and it just leads us to that next point of the Browns felt like they cleaned it up a little bit last week against the Giants as far as penalties, but putting yourself in 1st and 15s and 1st and 20s, Deontay Foreman, I think, could be really beneficial to a team to get you to 2nd and 7, 3rd and 3, put you in, kind of keep you ahead of the sticks, which I think can be really beneficial for an offense trying to find itself. But when you're at 1st and 15, it's tough. So I just love the idea of Foreman being that guy that you can turn and hand the ball to, and he can get you forward and get you those few yards. and it allows Jerome Ford to be a little bit more of a change of pace. It allows for the defense or for the offense to keep the defense a little bit more on its heels when Jerome Ford hits that change of pace. And it's like, whoa, this guy looks like he's running. He looks like he's running 40 next to Deontay Foreman. And if they can just kind of stay ahead of the sticks, I think it opens up a window for them. The other side of this, though, guys, when you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, I've been so good at not calling them Oakland so far today, and I'm really proud of myself. The other thing, Brad Ward, I'll let you kick it off here. The Vegas Raiders aren't good at doing anything defensively to start this year because they're also towards the bottom of the league as far as defending the pass. So they've not been good defending the run. They've not been good defending the pass. I've talked to some people that really call into question the way they can defend the middle of the field. Their linebackers are a big time question mark there. They do have some talented players in the defensive backfield, but just talk about, and again, I know where this is going to take us, and it's going to take us to this discussion about our quarterback too, but attacking this Raiders defense from a pass perspective.
Yeah, I mean, so they are dinged up back there. I think they have a safety making his first ever start in the NFL today. If I'm correct, Paulo Mayo, I think is his name, right? Strong safety.
Yeah.
You know, their corners aren't great. The Jacorian Bennett, Nate Hobbs, and Jack Jones. You were talking about Robert Spillane. I think they lost their other middle linebacker, is out. So if you're going to take advantage, I mean, listen, the pass scheme has been there. There have been guys open. There has been stuff there to take advantage of. Would I like to see them do more, play action and stuff? But a lot of the longer developing stuff that did not work at the beginning of last week, let's ease into that a little bit more. I'd like to see them try to give Watson the easiest answers possible early in this game. I know we kind of said that week one, and it's probably been a mantra of repeating that kind of stuff. But, they did make a mistake in some of the checkdowns that should have been there when he was under heavy pressure just weren't there. And some of the plays they're running were really long developing plays. So maybe ease into that as you have a better feel for managing the rush or whatever, the downfield stuff. I'd really like to see him just try to get him into a rhythm, get him 4 or 5, get him 6 or 7 with some easy stuff. And I think you can do that against this defense, who will have some backups in there, who, and to your point, and the figures in front of you, just haven't been very good at guarding the pass. I mean, Andy Dalton carved them up, and their wide receivers had monster days, a lot of them. So, this is a really get right spot for some of your receiving core and Deshaun, if you can kind of craft the proper game plan in the pass game.
Yeah. I just think smart and quick decisions. I again, Brad, you said it, and we've said it literally all year. Like, that's the craziest part about it. But like, I think when Watson starts to feel a groove, like I thought he kind of got in a groove a little bit in the second half, and you get the turnovers there and the mistakes that end up ultimately you fall short. But I thought in the second half he played better, and some of that was just confidence. I think he got some big throws and some nice catches, and just had some situations like, okay, like it's almost like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like it does feel like sometimes he can be a slow starter. We know this about it historically, even in Houston at the beginning of the year, especially, he is a slow starter, but it's just find some ways to compile situations, some 6-yard throws, some 10-yard throws. You don't have to go for vertical and get all the points in one go. Just stack some successful plays, some easy reads, you've got to find an answer where you have to find a way to feel confident that like when you need something, you can go to this. You can go to Amari Cooper. Like that Amari Cooper slant touchdown was the easiest touchdown I've seen the Browns have all year. Like that second half touchdown is in that situation, you knew you could go to that. Lean on those plays, lean on those players, and allow them to do the things that they're also paid to do. That way the quarterback kind of get some of that rhythm and some confidence building. And I think that's the key to it.
More than anything, I just like to see the Browns determine what their identity is. And I don't want to get into a whole discussion about identity.
That's great.
But whatever they think they are, do that. Like, that's ultimately what I would see. And yes, I understand the offensive line is a challenge and some of these other things, but like at some point you have to decide this is who you are and how you're going to play the game. And I don't think we've really seen much of that to this point, where it always feels like they're trying to get away from whatever they're dealing with that given week. And I think at some point they're going to have to do that. But just in general, who are you as a running game? I think we see bits and pieces of it. I like the run concepts they use. We aren't seeing enough, and they need to do better. So you see some of the passing concepts. I think we saw a little bit of, issues with that in terms of being able to protect and the right calls at the right times against what the Giants were doing blitz-wise. But I just want to see what they think they are in this game, and they open themselves up that way. Hopefully that does bring them confidence. But like, you've been at this for 4 months, let's say, in terms of getting after it, practice, all this other stuff. Like, you shouldn't be reinventing yourself as much as maybe like it feels like they are at times. What are the mainstays you have? What are those plays? Because I want to see those. I want to see those plays executed, and see what that looks like. And if they can get that going, I think they can get themselves into a rhythm. If they can't, then they have sort of existential questions at that point about what needs to happen offensively.
Yeah, that's and we talked about it's been an inefficient offense. It's been an ineffective offense, but it's an offense that looks like it should be. It prides itself on trying to be efficient. They got to figure out a way to get explosive as well, because efficient is one thing, but when it's for 3 yards and there's no explosion and we're not breaking tackles, and you've seen a little bit here or there, but the Browns have to answer that question on how you can be an explosive offense, not just they've been a slow offense, and you can't just be a slow offense. And today maybe offers them the chance to get into more of an explosive setting if they can get things going right. Hey, before we go over to the other side of the ball, real quick, I want to remind you guys that our pregame show or postgame show, a lot of what we do here on the OBR streaming network is brought to you by Core Home Fitness. And Core Home Fitness, get over to corehomefitness.com, the adjustable dumbbells. They've got so much awesome stuff that you can outfit your home with to try to get yourself in much better shape than me. Again, I went and ordered the adjustable dumbbells, and I'm just waiting on them to arrive. I'm really excited about it. I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to see. I'm going to put myself into the position that I got to use them because they're so cool. And again, I think part of the problem when you're trying to outfit your home with fitness equipment is that it feels bulky. It feels like it takes up a ton of room. You're like, I don't know where I'm going to put it. Core Home Fitness really tries to get that squared away so that you can have like a nice space, doesn't take up a ton of room. It's efficient, like we talked about, but it really helps you get in shape. So if you want to get in shape, if you want to look like you could be out there playing for the Browns, get over to corehomefitness.com, order your stuff, and outfit your home with some of the best, most innovative fitness equipment that you could possibly find. All right, guys, let's go to the other side of the football, the Cleveland Browns defense. I think last week there's a conversation about, man, they didn't look good against Malik Neighbors. They didn't look good against Daniel Jones. I think part of that conversation can come down to the fact that they spent, I don't know, I feel like it was 90% of the first half on the field. And that makes life a little harder on a defense. They did feel like they locked it down. Once they got Denzel Ward over to Malik Neighbors, things looked a lot better. But let's just talk about this Browns defense going up against Gardner Minshew. And I think a lot of us are going to have Minshew PTSD from the way he played against us with the Colts last year. Gardner Minshew, a really bad rushing attack for the Raiders. They are, I think, dead last in the league in running the football, and I think it's by a wide margin. And now you don't have your best weapon in Devontae Adams out there. What are we looking for as far as maybe a little bit of change of strategy and scheme out of the Browns defense playing the Raiders today?
Well, I think that you can put them in yourself in very good positions on 3rd and long. Like, I think really match up well because we understand that the Browns in the middle of their defensive line, the run defense in that area is probably the weakest area, maybe, I think, probably on the defense. And when you're able to pop off some 4 or 5 yard runs and get in third and shorts, it kind of they can use that quick play to, kind of cancel out the Browns pass rush. 2.8 yards per rush. Like, you can put yourselves in situations where you can let these rushers pin their ears back. That's not a great offensive line by any stretch of the imagination. They're banged up too. I know Myles Garrett's banged up, but like, you've got other dudes there that should be able to get the job done. If they can make sure that they don't do one of these things where they face a team that's really bad at running the ball and then they make them look really good at running the ball, if they can avoid doing that, it puts them in some situations where they can use the strength of this defense, which is that pass rush. And if they get in those situations, and if Denzel Ward is what Denzel Ward was last week, really all year, you're going to put yourself in some really good spots because Minshew's not going to have that guy out there to lean on. Like, when Devontae Adams is out there, it doesn't matter. Chaos is everything's breaking it down around you. Just throw the ball up, get it in his area, and he can make a play. With him not out there and with Michael Mayer not out there. And I know Brock Bowers is still, but I think you got yourself in a really good position if you can continue to force them to not be able to run the ball.
It's interesting. I think that, we kind of talked about this the other night on things. I think, it feels like this Browns defense is trying to live up to that number one billing all the time. And there's like this aggression that they play with that comes from Schwartz and their identity and everything. But sometimes you just got to break down and make a tackle instead of firing upfield and trying to make an 8-yard loss or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that's like the frustrating thing about Schwartz sometimes is that's just, the identity. That's what he preaches. But like, there was, in going back and watching last week's game, there was multiple opportunities where the guys had a chance to wrap people up and just kind of fired past a runner and let him get an extra 10 yards or whatever. But either way, I just think this defense can be better. Whether they are attacking, and I do think you can attack and get after the quarterback in this situation and put Minshew under pressure, as Jacob pointed out, in third down situations and even other obvious pass situations. Because I don't think they're going to run the ball. I don't know what fantasy people were talking about. They had Zamir White as like one of the top fantasy backs in the league before this year, but their run game is non-existent. So you really can get after the pass game and pressure. But at the same time, like, let's not give up chunk plays. They don't have a star wide receiver out there. This defense has a ton of talent still on the field. So whether you're in zone, man, whatever you're doing schematically, just let them play. They should be fine. They have more talent than the other team. They should win and get off the field on third downs. I know it sounds really simple, but.
So obviously the first thing is what Brad talked about. They just got to make the tackles that are there. I love JOK, but I'm tired of watching him dive past things that are in the backfield where if he just wraps it up or waits for his teammates to sort of get there, they'd make a stop, at least limit the damage as opposed to just throwing yourself at the guy and then giving up 10, 15 yards. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to attack. The Raiders have one of the worst rush offenses in the league. So if that allows the Browns to put them in consistently negative situations, that allows them to pin their ears back and rush the passer, that's great. But they also have to account for if it's Minshew the whole way, his legs, they can't allow him to create the way they did the last time they played Minshew with his legs. And then beyond that, they, as much as I would like them to sort of mix in some looks where they pull back and sort of keep things in front of them, they're going to do what they do. They're going to attack. They're going to sort of, Jim Schwartz's whole mantra is, I'm going to make if I make one negative play, it's going to ultimately end the drive. And that's fine. Obviously, there's a risk reward component. But if there's a team that sort of sets up for you to sort of say, this is the great Browns defense that we should be having, I think the Raiders really set up that way. Trey Tucker's a nice receiver. He's not Devontae Adams. Like I said, Brock Bowers is a legitimate challenge. They've got to deal with that. But again, not having Devontae Adams on the field is a big deal. So they've got to, put their weight on them a little bit and lean into them. I mean, Myles Garrett, I would like to see this defense play up to the level I saw Myles Garrett play last week as he was dealing with an incredible amount of pain. And he still dominated. I would like to see more guys sort of play that level and show it, because this is a team you could hold under 10 theoretically, or based on your talent, based on your ability, if you just avoid making stupid mistakes and the coverage busts and all this other stuff. Because otherwise we're going to be talking about how much this looks like a Joe Woods defense, and we don't have Joe Woods to kick around anymore. You've got a whole lot of players that are way too good to be giving up some of the plays that they are, and that's ultimately where they've got to sort of step up and make it happen. And there are players who are playing really well. Jordan Hicks has been terrific for this defense. He's been a genuine add. Grant Delpit and JOK are playing really good football. They just need to keep adding to the list of guys who are playing really good football. I'm hoping Martin Emerson bounces back in a big way. I'm sure he's not happy with his performance as much as I don't like how they schematically had him playing last week, but I would hope he's coming back ready to go, ready to sort of make an impact in a way that he wasn't able to last week, given all the hype coming in that I think was richly deserved based on what he did against Justin Jefferson in the joint practices and some of the other things we've seen. So it's there for them. They've got really good corners. They've got good safety play. I mean, they had a turnover in the game last week, and they allowed it to not only give it away with a bad penalty, as soft as it may have been, but they also allowed it to become a bigger problem than just getting back and getting over it.
I think it's great, and I will say, if you checked out the Doghouse this week, I had Jay Richardson on with me, who played at Ohio State, and then he played for the Raiders. He said one of the things that should make the Raiders pretty nervous is that you may not think about, but from a motivation standpoint, guys around the league text each other. He said you get texts from guys that play on all the other teams that say, "You let Daniel Jones carve you up like what?" And it gives you a little extra motivation going into your next game. And I would imagine some of the Browns got those text messages from some of their buddies around the league this last week. So I did hear, I know the Steelers went down, so that's what you guys are reacting to, right? So the Steelers are in the loss column. Thank you, Joe Flacco. Appreciate you, buddy. I did hear back. I asked my buddy what he's crazy about this crowd out there in Vegas. He said it's 3-1 Browns fans to Raiders fans out there, which, again, that's just awesome. It should be a really awesome atmosphere for these guys to play in. But I think a lot of what you guys talked about with defense is just do the be boring for once. It's okay to be boring. Yeah. You don't have to make that big highlight play. And again, you don't want to take the aggression away. You don't want to take the aggression away, but it's okay. Be a little boring. Fill the gap. Break down and make a tackle for a loss of 1 instead of a loss of 8. That works out great. And just make those solid plays and get your mojo back a little bit. And I think that helps them moving forward. So, guys, the last few minutes of the pregame show here on the OBR streaming network, I do want to remind everybody that we are going to be on immediately following the game today to break down the action that we saw, hopefully talking about a Cleveland Browns victory in Las Vegas. So make sure you are tuned in to the OBR streaming network for the Browns post-game show immediately following the game, leading you into Sunday night football. But guys, we've hit on a lot of things. We've talked about a lot of areas that are of concern, a lot of areas the Browns should not be concerned. They should just go out and play their game. But go around the horn and give me your key to this game. Brad, go ahead and start.
I think the key to this game would be, I think that starting strong will be the key. So if you go into halftime and this is a game where you've struggled to move the ball, you've punted 4 or 5 times, whatever of your drives, and you look like you're still listen, I think Pete nailed it earlier when he said they have to find their identity on offense. And I don't know when they're going to do that, but you don't have to find your identity today to win. Yes, you need to try to do the things that work, but you should be making progress towards that identity. And in doing so, get off to a good start today. get Deshaun in some kind of rhythm, run the football, make this as easy as possible on the offensive line and on 4 as you can, and get some kind of a lead. You should be able to win in the trenches somewhat on the defensive side of the ball, even running the ball. But if this goes into halftime as a close game, then, I'm going to be a little bit worried going into the second half. I mean, I don't expect it to be a blowout, but I think you should be up by like a touchdown going in at halftime. And I think that would be ideal. So a quick start, whether you get the ball, get a 3 and out, and move the ball early, kind of set the tone for this game in front of a favorable crowd against a beat up team that is also going through stuff off the field. Jump on them right away. Don't give them life, right? The longer you give them life in this one, the more of an issue you're going to have, because they're going to fight too if they feel like they have a chance.
Pete?
Well, I mean, if you're the Browns, you're looking at this as Al Davis. You're just saying, just win, baby. Any way you can do it. You don't care. I mean, just get to 2-2. It would be great if the defense comes out and puts a dominating performance on. And even if the Browns offense isn't like rolling down the field, that they're able to have put together positive possession after positive possession. Some of them may end in punts, but it's all about advancing the ball, winning on field position, and creating points off of that. And because that is what, in many ways, we expected to see coming into the season, and then the offense was going to slowly get going and hopefully become more explosive as we move along. The defense should really have a great game in this one. The Browns, so long as they protect the ball, should at least avoid doing harm. And if they can do that, I think they're ultimately going to be able to find a way to win. I would love to say it's going to be high scoring fair, but hey, I predicted 2-0, and I don't have much reason to jump off of that point, because I want to see a reason to feel better about what I'm seeing beyond the quarterback, beyond the offensive. Like, there's too many things I can point at and go, this isn't going the way it's supposed to.
That's right. So Pete, you jumped ahead and you gave us your score prediction, but that's fine. That's fine. I'll come back to you, Brad, on that one. But Pete's saying 2-0 Browns, which is my favorite. Jacob, your key to the game, and you go ahead with your score prediction too.
Yeah, I'll build off of something Pete said there. It's the mental mistakes. You can't have 100 yards of penalties. Like, you can't do that. You can't turn the ball over 2 or 3 times. It's those mental mistakes were the difference. I thought you were a better team, I thought, last week than the Giants, but you didn't act like it. So, limit those mental mistakes. Don't set them up with a short field to where they can get a big score that puts them over you. You turn the ball over in your own territory, they kick a field goal, or they get a 20-yard touchdown, things like that. So if you can limit those mistakes. Originally, I actually had this as a loss on our roundtable on the website. Max Crosby was part of why I predicted that loss, because him going up against what I think is an injured DeJuan Jones or James Hudson, but now he's not out there. It changes a little bit. I'll pivot and I'll go 17-10 Browns.
Soft.
Brad, you didn't give us your score prediction. What do you got?
Yeah, I had to go back and look because I forgot, but it's actually 17-10 as well. So,
all right,
great minds.
No, I think you guys hit on so many of the points. And Brad, I loved yours, and I think this is the big one. Get out to a good start. Stop. Right now, what you've got is a bunch of guys that when they fall behind, they're pressuring themselves so much to make a big play that they're not making a basic play, and that has been a mental hurdle in the biggest way, I think, for the Cleveland Browns. Is that when they have not gotten off to a good start, they're pressing, and number 4 is pressing, and so is everybody else. So get out to a good start, and then just play free and play the way you can. And I think the Browns can run away with this one. But I'm going to stick with the real prediction. 27-16 is my actual prediction. I think the Browns are going to win in this game, especially with all the injuries. But my I don't want to break the streak prediction is until Deshaun Watson shows that he can do it week in and week out, it's going to be 3-0 Raiders. So my unofficial prediction, 3-0 Raiders. My official prediction, 27-16 Cleveland Browns. All right, boys. Well, we got 10 minutes till kickoff. Brad, you had one more thing you wanted to add there?
I was going to say, for the record, I will take 2-0. I will take it.
Yeah, right. Oh, and we aren't doing that. If the Browns win this game and get themselves 500 and get themselves working back towards, I don't care what it looks like. We get on this pregame show and we'll break it down and we'll be honest about what we watched. but a win is a win is a win is a win is a win. And it doesn't matter how they got it. They need to go out and get a win today. And that's the most important thing. We're rooting for it. We know you're rooting for it. Man, I saw some people out here talking about being Browns fans for 50 plus years. And it's not always been easy, but hopefully this afternoon, the Cleveland Browns made it easy. We know you guys have had to wait a long time for this one. These late afternoon games, 2 of them to start the season out of the first 4 weeks, are rough. You got to watch all these other games, but we got to watch the Steelers lose. There's some other competition going on out there, but we are 10 minutes away from kickoff here. So we're going to wrap things up on the pregame show, let you guys go to the bathroom, let you guys grab a beverage, get posted up in your favorite spot. The Cleveland Browns, the Vegas Raiders, they kick off in 10 minutes at 4:25 out in Las Vegas. Keep an eye on all the Browns fans in that stadium because it looks like it's a rocking good time for Cleveland fans, and hopefully the team follows suit. Again, we're brought to you on the pregame show by Core Home Fitness. Check out corehomefitness.com. If you want to, you can hang out with our official game thread on the OBR. Get to the OBR.com and you can be part of the official game thread and join us in the conversation as the game goes on. But make sure you are following these guys and make sure you are tuned in to everything OBR as the Browns season goes on. We will catch up with you after the Browns game for the post-game show immediately following right here on TikTok, on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube, wherever you watch us. So make sure you tune in right after the game. But until then, here's looking for a few good hours of Cleveland Browns football. We're cheering for them. Go Browns. We'll see you after the game.